Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel, Life, Liberty, Adventures. And I guess this little segment is one of those life things, and could also be an adventure depending on how you look at it. So my Jeep is a 2020 Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon with the 2.0 turbo. It has engine start stop, but it has no e-torque. I bought it in June of 2020 and it is now May of 2022. So I've had it a little under 2 years and just under 10,000 miles right now. Never had a lick of trouble with it whatsoever. We are up in the mountains right now at a family's cabin, which is about a 4-hour drive away. And on our drive up, about halfway through, the check battery voltage light came on in the dash. Okay, my Jeep is rather new for issues like that, so it was kind of perplexing. And I've heard of all the stories up till now about the engine start stop battery. It's an auxiliary battery that is mounted below the main engine starting battery in the Jeeps. I've heard lots of stories about those dying prematurely, so that was my first thought. So we got off at the next exit, which was Du Bois, Pennsylvania. Had a large there's truck stops there, there's all kinds of auto parts store, the smaller size city. So I fueled up and went to the O'Reilly Auto Parts and told them the situation, and they brought their tester out and we checked the charging system, the battery. The battery checked out okay, and also the alternator checked out fine, that it was charging good. So there was really nothing to show to replace anything. So we hopped back in the Jeep and continued our way. And then all during that trip, the battery voltage, I was monitoring it on the dash in the evic, and it was fluctuating between about approximately 12 volts up to 13, maybe 13.2, something like that, which it typically runs around 14 volts when it was new, and up till now it has. So we made it up to the cabin, and the next day my dad and I looked over things, and he had a multimeter, so we checked the voltage on both batteries and we isolated them. And how we did that is, on the battery top you have the positive side and you have the negative side, and we removed both of these cables from the negative side, and this front cable towards the fender is the battery cable for the main battery. This rear one is the cable that goes to the auxiliary battery or the engine start stop battery. So we separated these from the battery post, and then we separated them from each other. There's kind of two connections there, and then we checked them individually. And the main engine starting battery had shown about 12.7 volts, 12.8 volts, which is fine. And when we checked the voltage on the auxiliary battery, it was showing about 1.5 volts, maybe 1.7, somewhere in that range. So up until now, everything was leading me to believe that the auxiliary battery had died, because once we had everything hooked up and we also checked the voltage when it was running, and at that time it climbed up to about 13.4, so the alternator was obviously charging, so it's putting charge in. But one other interesting fact was when we were disconnecting these two cables from one another with this one post, it was sparking in between the connections. So that tells me that there is a draw on the main battery from the auxiliary battery, which is, again, that's another indicator leading towards the auxiliary battery being dead or having a short in it or what have you. So over the next day and a half, obviously it's the weekend, we couldn't take it in the dealer, they're not open. We found a dealer up here about a half-hour drive away. So before Monday, we were driving it around the area, taking our bikes out to go for a bike ride, and at one point the Jeep showed a warning sign on the dash, on the evic, that said stop safely, vehicle will shut down soon. And that caused me quite concern, because obviously you don't want the engine to turn off when you're driving down the road, because bad things can happen if you're not prepared for that situation. But so we're actually headed back to the cabin, so we parked and we sat in the vehicle for I don't know how many minutes, and it never shut off. So I'm like, okay, what happened? When's it gonna shut off? So I turned it off, let the electronics go to sleep, and turned it on again, and everything looked normal. The battery voltage was showing up around 13.2, 13.3. Everything looks normal. So it's really strange happenings here that were, it's just very odd the way this was all working out. Monday morning we headed out, went to the dealer. I explained everything about what we were running into and what I was finding with the multimeter checks, and they said okay, they'll take a look at it. You know, they agreed it sounds like the auxiliary battery is dead, and they'll load test both batteries, check the charging system, and give it a once over look-see to make sure everything's okay. It's obviously under full factory bumper-to-bumper warranty yet, so I wasn't concerned about having to pay anything. But at any rate, so we said, okay, we're gonna go do some exploring, and we'll be, you know, give us a call when it's ready, and we'll be back. So they called me up about, I guess it was just under 2 hours after we dropped it off and left, and what they found was there was a loose ground wire that was causing the issue, and the loose ground wire was right here at the battery, to the rear of the battery on the fender side. And if you look, there is a terminal post right here. You can see the paint is scuffed off of that nut, and this connection here was loose. Now these wires here are for some auxiliary off-road lights I had added about a month ago, but I didn't mess with this connection here at all. I mounted my relay for the lighting system up here, but it's interesting that this one was loose. So when talking to them afterwards about it, they actually said that's a common thing for Jeep Wranglers, is for that connection to be loose. Nobody's really sure why that comes loose, but if you experience symptoms and weird things with your charging system and battery voltage like I was, look at that fitting and make sure that is tight. That could be the cause of it. It might not even be the auxiliary battery. So everything's working fine now. It's all back to normal, charging about 14 volts, no lights on the dash, and both batteries got a clean bill of health from the dealer and on the load tests, and yeah, they covered it all under warranty, and we're all good to go.
Back to the adventure, right?
Back to the adventures next time.